Hey Sunil, hi. I really got worried when I couldn't connect just now.
Trust me, same thing happened. I panicked. I sent an email. I created a WhatsApp group.
Oh, you were the one who created. Thank God for that. Because when something goes technically wrong, my first thing that comes to my mind is I must have done something wrong. Oh, that was so stressful.
There was once I was doing a session for this client in South Africa. I'm supposed to be addressing 900 people, and I actually made sure that 30 minutes before I went in, everything was fine. Then I said, okay, now time to go make a cup of coffee and relax a bit, because you're addressing from the board members all the way down to the top management. I said, okay, now time to go have coffee. Can you imagine? You come back with your cup of coffee and you suddenly see the screen is gone.
Hi, great.
Hi, John.
Hi,
How are you, John?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Hey,
Yeah.
John, how are you, buddy?
So I think
The
that's
mini
already
reunion.
Virtual reunion, I
Virtual
guess.
reunion.
Virtual reunion.
Well, that's the new norm nowadays, right? Everything
Yeah,
virtual. Something
So
that
sad,
we cannot
right?
avoid. Yeah, right.
Is everybody at home?
Yes. Okay. For ELC, we are started to get back to our office. 30% of us usually on rotational basis.
Oh, 1/3.
So yeah, like for
30%.
myself, only one day in a week to be in the office. So Friday is my in the work from home. So in basically in ELC, in EPF mostly 30%, started 30% will be in the office, while others they're most to be prefer to be at home. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the wisest thing to do. But
Yeah.
quite a number of companies are back at 100% already, I think. But mostly are
it?
at 50.
Okay.
Well, it's about staying safe, right? So if you can avoid those risks, why not? I think. Well,
Yeah,
I think we are going to start shortly, I guess. About 10:30, right? I'm going to start.
Yes, 10:30 right now is about 10:29, is it? Okay. 10:29, maybe we can start once they bought in, because this is the first time actually for ELC to bought in through our own LMS. It's not from the Zoom. They don't get the Zoom link.
Okay.
So we are testing them out because we just launched our LMS, Alex, in which there is a webinar feature inside the LMS. So the tester must be from the learning part. So they need to figure out how to go into the webinar from the Alex, from the learning, from the platform. Yeah.
And that gets linked to the YouTube, is it?
Yes, yes, and then we also recorded and also projected to the YouTube.
Wow, that's amazing.
very cool.
Right. So far, so good, I guess, because it seems that everyone is having a seamless experience. So hopefully, we can keep the momentum going.
It looks like you guys got the LMS just in time, just before the crisis hit, huh?
Okay. We actually we got lucky actually on the month of March when the MCO started. We just conclude the purchase of LinkedIn Learning subscription. So we started off with that first. LMS just recently this month. So the buffer, the first 2 weeks when you're being held at home, your CEO will start to pressure something to learn. So we got lucky basically because we just concluded the purchasing of the LinkedIn Learning subscription.
Very cool.
Assalamualaikum, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to start the forum in 2 minutes time. Thank you. All right, I think we are good to go, right? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. Welcome to the Reimagining Workplace Forum, specially brought to you by EPF Learning Campus in collaboration with UNITA Asia Graduate School. I'm Irfan Zainal, your moderator for today. So ladies and gentlemen, before we start, let me share a few house rules that we need to be alert during this virtual session. Rule number one, there are two types of access mode. I think for our internal staff, it is going to be via LX platform. And for the rest, you'll be viewing through the YouTube link shared in email or WhatsApp group. Secondly, for those accessing from learning experience, your microphone will be muted automatically. If you have any questions, please key in your questions in the chat functions, or during the Q&A sessions, you can click raise hand and the admin will unmute your microphone. For YouTube viewers, there is no comment functions, but not to worry, ladies and gentlemen. We will share an online query form through WhatsApp group later, and you can submit all your questions in the form, and we will share the questions with the speaker. For our friends viewing through YouTube, you can claim your learning hours for this session by sending proof of attendance to your department or branch learning officer in the form of print screen or screenshot. Great. Ladies and gentlemen, Sugata Mitra, a professor of educational technology from Newcastle University in the UK, once said that learning can emerge as spontaneous order at the time of chaos. True enough, over the past few months, COVID-19 has transformed our lives in many, many ways never had thought possible. Did you ever imagine in your wildest of dreams that half of humankind will be under lockdown? No one will imagine that, right? These are unprecedented times, and it definitely needs unprecedented measures. From a hustling life to homebound, from face-to-face conversation to virtual meetings, a lot of things have changed. Our life and the new normal is being defined. So ladies and gentlemen, I think today we are very fortunate to have three distinguished panelists joining us to discuss further on this very, very interesting topic. So let me just take this opportunity to quickly introduce them. Our first panelist is John Kam, Chief Executive Officer of The Jungle People. Hi, John, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. The second panelist is Sunil Hasmukaray. Hopefully I pronounced it correctly, Sunil.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, great. Sunil is the president of Malaysia Positive Psychology Association. Welcome, Sunil. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you and everyone else here.
Great. And last but not least, a rose among the thorns, the only lady as our panelist, Malar Villi, the Managing Director of Hearts&Minds Development Centre. Welcome, Malar.
Thank you, Irfan. My name is Malar.
Malar, okay, right. Thank you, Malar, for the heads up.
Yeah.
Right, okay, great. So to kickstart the forum or to keep the ball rolling, I think perhaps it's better for each and every one of you to kindly introduce yourself and of course, tell us more about your experiences during COVID-19 movement control order as an individual and in regards to your company. So each of you will have 5 minutes. I mean to share your views or thoughts. Perhaps we will start with the lady first. Malar, the floor is yours.
I always thought it would be that way, you know.
You know that. Okay,
anyway,
great.
Yeah. So later when you go to the more difficult question, we start with the guys. Yeah, my name is Malar. Malar Villi. Malar in Tamil means flower, which is
right. Great.
Like you need to call me Malar, right?
Right.
I've been well, I set up Hearts&Minds about 20 years ago. Fell in love with training about 24 years ago, and it's one of the best things that's happened to my life, besides my children and my husband and my family, in that order, kind of a thing. You know? Yeah, so I generally do a lot of work around what is termed as emotional intelligence. I hope I'm fearful of being put in that space, because I've realized that in the last 20 years, emotions has always intrigued me, because I've always still labeled emotional. Right. And I think so my search in training, via training and education, was very much a search of myself, because people kept telling me that I shouldn't be emotional, right? And I didn't know how else to be myself without being myself, which is emotional, right? So that's been my conflict all the time about me, right? And yeah, so that's a bit about me. Hearts&Minds, we do programs generally in personal development. We've run programs from top to bottom, including cultural change. But our differentiator is bringing in the component that's often missed out, which is actually emotions, right? Yeah, I think that's a little bit about me and the kind of work we do, right?
Yeah, great, awesome. Sunil, perhaps you can say something on this as well.
Thank you so much, Irfan. And it's definitely a pleasure. So thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share and be part of this esteemed panel. So, you know, to your question about MCO and, you know, what was I probably doing? Nothing much except just launching multiple different initiatives and community service programs, and that's about it. You know, because the first thing that occurred to my mind, my own sister is a doctor, a specialist, heading the COVID team for the geriatrics group in University Hospital. So it occurred to me how much of stress and mental torture she was going through, and I said, like, imagine the only lines of defense that we have for our nation is the doctors and the nurses and the medical people. And if they were to collapse, the country is in trouble from a health pandemic perspective. So immediately, with a group of very passionate coaches, I'm also the president for the Malaysian Association of Professional Trainers and Coaches. So a group of coaches, we actually jumped in and we launched something called the C19 support group for frontliners. So we did a lot of coaching. In probably about a week, we received close to 1,700 coaching calls to support the doctors and people who are really going through a lot of mental trauma and torture and stress, right, because of this. Then as I'm having these calls, another thing comes up to my mind. Oh my God, people are going to start losing their jobs because SMEs are not going to be able to sustain financially. And that's where I jumped into the idea, and I'm so grateful to our partner, Talent Corp, who were willing to listen to the ideas that we gave. And we then launched an initiative called Kesa Siswa, where with a group of about 100 plus solution focused coaches, we have now reached out to probably more than 3,000 people in career coaching support, and it's been going on. And then comes the part, just about 2 weeks ago, we realized the SMEs are really going to need a lot of support. And that's why we went and jumped into the whole idea of doing SME coaching. And all this was being done for free. And it was very exciting, yet sometimes really draining. And that's where I was actually thinking, maybe I should get Malar to sit and talk to all these coaches. While you go out there and help the world, please make sure you take care of yourself before we collapse. Right. So that's on the front. Then, of course, the other part about me is I cannot keep quiet. I'm this person who has never been in the country more than 10 days in a year. In a month. Okay. And I'm always traveling for speaking engagements and all. And to me, it came to me about speaking and all that came to me when I was given the opportunity to speak at United Nations when I was 17 years old. So it is from the age of 17 till now, I've been very passionate to facilitate workshops, deliver keynote sessions, bringing leaders and people together for a common vision and purpose. So I think that is how I got into the space. And after working for 10 years in Petronas, I really realized that it's time for me to take the leap of faith, because a lot of people told me, why would you ever leave something so comfortable and something that pays you 7 to 8 months bonus to do something that you are passionate about? And I think, in life, you got to do what you are passionate about, because only when you love what you do, you will truly excel and you will do it with passion. So that's the space that I got into. On a professional note, I very much help leaders and organizations drive culture transformation through the leadership and also culture change management processes. And in principle, I specialize in 2 areas, which we use as the pillars to drive culture transformation. Number 1 is called solution focused approach. And number 2 is called appreciative inquiry. So for appreciative inquiry, I work with the founder of appreciative inquiry himself, and he and the team are sort of partners to the Center of Appreciative Inquiry in Malaysia, for which I'm actually a director, looking at the entire region right now. So that's a little bit about myself, from social work to lots of learning that happened. I completed my Marshall Goldsmith certification. I did my appreciative inquiry certification. I completed my solution focus. More and more learning happened. So that was the fun part of my life.
Great, awesome.
Yep.
Great, Sunil. Awesome, short and sweet. Very inspiring indeed. So perhaps, John, your turn.
Wow. So you know what? I stayed home for 3 months and I slept for as much as I could.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the best part.
No, I wish I could say that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm John. I'm with the Jungle People, and no, I don't have my loincloth with me today. I'm not going to swing from tree to tree. We're essentially an experiential learning consulting organization, and we work with our clients with regards to leadership development, organizational development, culture, values, and so on and so forth. We've been in the business for 20 years now. The organization, so it's been a really weird year for us, really strange, because this year we're celebrating our 20th anniversary, and we had we had everything planned out, right? 2 weeks ago was supposed to be the night of our gala dinner. And we also had everything planned out. Obviously, none of that happened. Early this year, what really is amazing is the speed in which everything happened for me. From a business perspective, it was a brilliant, well, it was setting up to be a really good year. Best year we've ever had. And in early January, we were doing our company trip and we were in Nepal and it was beautiful. We were hiking in the mountains, having snowball fights. We came back home, right? And within a span of 2 months, we had to do our business continuity plans. We had to do our scenario plannings and everything sort of ended in a downhill, massive downhill slide. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think everybody pretty much faced that whole speed that it happened just sort of took the whole country and probably a large part of the world by surprise. So from our business perspective, I think we had to pivot really, really quickly. A large part of our business comes from offsites. It comes from facilitating face-to-face sessions and so on and so forth. And for the last 3 months, obviously, we were not able to do that. So we had to do and pivot a lot of things online, had a lot of communication online. The learning curve was pretty steep. And it was really, really interesting. So even though it was really stressful as a business owner at this point in time, and I think every business owner probably echoes that, it's also been really, really interesting. And that's from a business perspective. From a personal perspective, I actually, well, I'm blessed, right? And I feel that I'm very blessed because I'm in a position to be able to actually enjoy the MCO to a certain extent because it gave individuals an opportunity to reconnect with the family, spend time when you otherwise would not have had the time. I've got 2 young kids at home, and it was a really cool chance for me because, like Sunil, I also travel a lot. And when you spend, 3-4 months, 24/7 at home, on one side they drive you mad. On the other side, you go and look like, wow, I didn't know they could do that, and I didn't know, the learning processes. So from a learning expert or learning professional's perspective, seeing kids learn on a daily basis also gave me re-grounded me on some of the principles of learning, and I thoroughly enjoyed that time. So on one side, really, really stressful. On one side, really grateful for the opportunity that we got. So that's for me and the last couple of months.
Right, great, John. Malar, perhaps you would like to, cover the second portion of the question. I guess you missed that part. The floor is yours. No worries. Very quick and brief.
Yeah, thanks. So what have I been up to after listening to Sunil and John? Mine is a combination of both, I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I've got 3 kids, a teenager and 2 10-year-olds. So like John, I could relate to what John was saying because for me I realized that, I had very little time for work because I was cooking meals after meals after meals, right? So that was a big portion. That has been a big fun portion of my life. So, you practice your innovation and your efficiency and all the things that you have been teaching people at home, right? And I would say that this is, for me, at a personal level, this is probably one of my best blessings of life. Yeah, because it really pushes you to think about what is important. I must say that I probably spent the first 2 weeks feeling a lot of grief, right? I've never, grief. Not so much for work, but I think my grief was a lot around the pain that I was actually watching around me. So that prompted me to start some storytelling on YouTube, quick stories that has always inspired simple-minded people. So I started that because I've always been very fearful of going on video, right? So old school of thought, right? So, but other than that, I must say that from, I won't say from a work point of view, from a personal and professional development as a person, as a trainer, There's been so much of learning. I did things that I would have never have dreamt doing. I've learned how to deliver programs online, and I'm a non-believer, right? So to be converted and to now enjoy it, I think is a major change, right? I actually, hope that I do think this is one of the best moments, most memorable moments, most difficult. From a family point of view, I think ties have become closer at home because you can't run away, right? Being locked down together, you learn how to really appreciate people differently, appreciate a lot of things that you take for granted. From a work point of view, I am very grateful. In the last 20 years, I've not seen so much of collaboration among peers, among what would be termed as competitors, right? And I really appreciate that from a work point of view. But I miss having the team together, because I think we tend to miss out on the kind of underlying communication that goes when you work at the same space. Because I realize when I'm catching up on Zoom with my colleagues, there are a lot of things that happens in my mind that they don't know of, right? But when you work at the same space, you don't recognize that this information actually got passed on, right? So at a personal level, I've benefited because my family got to see how I work. They always think I don't work, right? Yeah, because you're so happy at work, they don't think you work. So they got to see that. But at a professional side, I miss being in that space with people, because I think there's so much of unconscious communication that goes on, which is actually essential. So Evan, thanks for the second chance.
Thanks, Malar. Thanks, Malar. Okay, great response from all the panelists. Well, I think COVID-19 is definitely a blessing in disguise for everyone. To me, I think it's a window of opportunity, right? It's how you actually tap into all those opportunities and make yourself and make your organization a better place for everyone. Well, in a lot of conferences, I mean, a lot of the leaders, they are actually saying to the whole world that COVID-19 is somehow a catalyst or is an accelerator in terms of the IR 4.0 development as well as digital transformation. I think that is the trend nowadays, because they see COVID-19 as a huge opportunity, right, in terms of their business and in terms of how they can actually gain a very strong presence in the market. So in terms of the L&D, right, how can L&D or training be impacted by the crisis in terms of, number one, focus, number two, in terms of strategy, budget, resources, and the key enablers? Perhaps Sunil, I need your response first on that. I can feel your energy, man. Come on.
Okay. Well, I think, at this point of time, one of the most useful things to do is to really reevaluate, the organizational strength. Now, the mere fact that you manage to survive, right, and embrace this, very unique times, right, the last 90 over days, clearly says that you were able to sustain. And the word sustain has come because you were having enough strengths, resources, and all that. So what really could be useful is for leaders, of the various divisions and leaders of various organizations to really re-strategize how leveraging on strengths to navigate the organization moving forward could look like. Because many at times they have noticed that leaders and managers generally have the perception that we need to quickly do gap analysis and quickly close the gap. And in the process of always trying to close gaps, right, we tend to spend so much of time, money, resources, and all that, not realizing that there are enough of people who are hired in the organization with sufficient skills that you can leverage on. So it is basically now time to actually do L&D, but in a very different way. And this is something that I'm sharing with you is based on our conversations during my meeting in Sydney, because I also sit on the Learning and Development Standards Committee for ISO standards. Yeah. Right. So when we were talking initially, the draft was working from a perspective of, looking at gaps and how to do gap analysis and all that, because that's the traditional approach of doing it. And eventually, when we were having the conversation, we decided to sort of relook at that and start looking at people from a strengths perspective. Let's put it this way. If you are on a scale, right, between 1 to a 6, 1 to a 10, and let's say you are already at a 6, why are we looking at the gaps in the person, right, which is below there? You're looking at the pots of what is not working, right? And then you're closing, 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 closing. How is that helping to move forward, right? So what is going to be useful is to appreciate people for where they are now based on the strengths, resources, and capabilities and skills that you hired them for, and then look at what's going to help them, or what exactly is the preferred future 7, right? From a 6 to a 7, and then you look at the area of development. Right? So I think that shift in psychology can really save millions of dollars for the organization, because I am sure when we hire, we have already hired for certain skills and resources and strengths within the organization, within the people that we are bringing into the organization. So I believe that now L&D is going to shift, right? And it's going to be very focused on learning in 2 ways. Face-to-face training, which was like the only way, right, will now be probably moving towards a level of blended learning. In fact, a lot of my programs have now moved into blended. So we have got, say, maybe 3 days or 4 days, face-to-face. The rest of it are all online sessions like this. And the impact that has been measured seems to be very, very effective. And which is why it gives me opportunity to do work overseas by sitting in the comforts of, our home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Echoing on what Sunil has said, perhaps John, you would like to add in?
Okay, so
on your part, yeah.
I think I echo what Sunil says, right? It's really important to play to strengths, especially times like this where people are so tempted to focus on weaknesses, because that's the normal reaction to crisis, right? We got to fix what's wrong versus playing to strengths. So I totally agree with that. But if you're looking at L&D as a department within an organization, I think it's also imperative that L&D now focuses on 2 things, because the reality is that survival is critical. Many organizations out there are right now struggling very badly. And even though they may want to put a brave front to it, the reality is that you've got to survive the next couple of months. Some organizations have already not successfully survived the past couple of months. So any L&D activity, any L&D exercise in the short term, I think should be focused on assisting whatever business that you're in to survive. Now, if you're listening into this forum right now, it means you've got a job, you've got a stable job, good for you, well done, be thankful, be grateful. And if that's the case, then L&D exercises or L&D activities or even the departments need to focus then on business transformation. So it's either business survival or business transformation as opposed to business as usual. The worst thing that L&D can do right now is to do what they've always done or hope that things will go back to a situation where they can do what they've always done, right? Because that's not going to happen. At the worst case scenario, like I said, business survival, and the best case scenario, business transformation. The other way that I see L&D needing to refocus is, well, and this is me on a personal basis. I don't have statistics to back it up. This is just based on our observations for the last couple of months. I see the transition of learning moving away from organization-driven to individual-driven. Individuals have got to take accountability for their own growth. Individuals have got to take accountability for their own development. While this story has never changed, well, it's always been there, right? This narrative has always been there, but now it's more critical than ever. And if you're listening in onto this, then I'm telling you that you can't expect the organization to drive your growth and your learning anymore. You've got to take accountability of that. And what that means for L&D is that for L&D now, the role may shift into more of a facilitator role rather than a training provider role. to be able to teach the skill sets of learning rather than to teach learning in of itself. So I'm hoping I make sense, right? Because it's a shift in skill sets. Recently, I think Harvard Business Review came up with an article that I totally agree with. Is that it's not about what you know that's going to help you survive the future. It's about whether you know how to learn. And that's really critical, because there is pretty much no way that any individual can acquire skill sets at a speed that's fast enough for you to be able to stay relevant all the time. So it really needs an individual that's agile enough to get into the situation. And once you're in the situation, to be able to pick up those new skills when you're in that situation. So while I do say that it's an advantage if you're able to predict and prepare yourself for some of those situations, that's all well and good. I'm also realistic enough to say that you will never be able to prepare yourself with the skill sets needed for every situation. And at the rate that the situations are changing, you know, you're going to be sitting in the classroom 9 hours a day, 365 days a year, and you're still not going to have enough time to pick up those skills. So the real skill that you've got to pick up is the ability to learn, and the ability to learn fast. And not many people have those skills. So that's the shift, right? A mentality that's open, a mentality that's receptive, a mentality that is comfortable with uncertainty. I think L&D needs to drive those mentalities, because at the end of the day, like I said, the individuals need to take accountability for their own development and growth.
Yeah, great, John. I think when you talk about that, VUCA mindset is a must nowadays. Well, easy to say, but very difficult to do, right? In fact, a lot of senior leaders, they're having issues in terms of how they can actually change the mindset of their people, the departments under them. They have the idea, but they might have some sort of challenges in terms of the maturity of the people. For example, in many organizations, due to the multi-generational workforce, the resistance is there, so on and so forth. So perhaps, Malar, you can share a little bit on your thoughts about all these areas.
Well, wow. I loved what, I resonate a lot with what John said, right? I am of the thinking and opinion that a lot of the things that we're experiencing is not new, but what COVID is doing is it's pushing us in a corner to really look at the truth, right? Because I think I've been reading quite a bit about human psychology, right? I think one of those things so I think we know what the truth is, but we don't deal with the truth because we've always been running on quick fixes, right? We have a problem that was created for months, for years, that has existed. So whether you look at the mindset of the individuals or the mindset of organization is it is just a total sum of the minds in that space, right? You know, sometimes we say leadership. Who is leadership, right? It's just, so I look at it as your organization and the culture that you hold is the total sum reflection of the total minds in your company, right? Right. So while we say, you know, we need to shift our L&D, we have to shift our strategy, really, I think what we need to do is that first, I think we need to start thinking both at individual level and an organizational level, what is relevant today, and be real about it, right? I think what happened in the past, and pessimistically, I feel it will continue in a more sophisticated manner. Right? I think if you talk about change, you really need to change to be relevant. And maybe there is no need to change, right? I don't, right? So I think we don't need to change for the sake of changing. You don't need to go from face to face or whatever you were doing to online just because everyone says so. Because what if, you know, there are some people who learn better face to face, right? What if some content is better face to face? I think what we need to talk about is not about just shifting strategies so that we sound cool, sound cool and that we are following the trend. We are very good at following trends, right? But the trend has to fit our reality, right? And I think that's the part we have always missed out in the past. I not hope, I pray that, we've had some time during COVID. Now, what does that mean? If I look at organization transition, right? We used to be very focused in this part of the world on personal development. Individuals are our strength. So like what Sunil said, right? We need to be focused on strength. Now that's not new, right? Engagement is not new, right? None of the things that we're finding out is new. But what is new is that because we didn't do it in the past, we are going extreme pain currently, right? We all know sustainable individuals need to connect with their heart, with their purpose. Now, for me to connect with my heart, with my purpose, I need to know who am I. But if you look at the trends in the last 5 years, again, because AI was very loud, 4.0 was very loud, a lot of training budgets was shifted away from personal development, from soft skills to paying, using that money for technology. Now, it is not that technology is not important, but you don't do either or. You need to see how that different things fit into context and come together, right? And I think we are falling into the trap of either or again, right? Because of COVID, so we need to go all online, we need to be self-learning. If your people have been in this part of the world where we are not taught to self-learn, right? Training, if you look at training evaluation, right? What are we, how do we bring in vendors? We bring them in for content or for fun, right? So right now I hear everyone is on handphone, everyone is on gamification. We talk about generation, right? At some point, I remember when in the recent times, when we are designing training programs, right? I have clients saying we have different generations and you need to meet the needs of generation, which means that you make training shorter and shorter and shorter, right? But none of us are looking at training people for higher retention of learning, training people to be focused, because that is what is going to make a difference in the future. The shorter our attention span, the lesser we're going to learn, right? So on one hand, we want engagement. On one hand, we want people who give optimal performance. On the other hand, all the things that we are doing in training is going opposite on what is good for humanity and for optimal performance, because an organization cannot be at its optimal performance if the individuals are not at optimal performance. So the key thing for me is we need to look at whatever happened pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID. The first conversation you need to have with your superior is, how do I get my optimal performance out? Because that's the only job security all of us have. Because if you're performing, people will keep you. With the retrenchments that's going out, just remember, no job is secure. And if you want to find security, it's only within yourself. Okay, that was a lot, right?
Yeah, great. I think everybody was so excited and they were listening attentively to what you said just now, Malar. Very inspiring, and I think, it's very comprehensive to a certain extent. I do agree. I mean, everybody should be agreeing with what you said just now because it makes sense, first of all. And I think it's the other parts that is very important. It's about being, it's about speed and agility, right? It's not about following the trends all the time. We need to pick and choose what is right for the betterment of the organization. Well, the next question will definitely straight away go to John. Well, John, I think COVID-19 has been something historical to our countries and all around the world, right? I think my question is very simple this time around: is that could the pandemic be a black swan moment for innovation in workplace learning? So what's your thought about that?
Could it be a black swan moment? I think it already is a black swan moment. The question is whether or not it's how it's used, right? Or how you take advantage of the situation. Right. And I think everybody here probably has heard of the usage of the Chinese word for crisis, right? 危机. And 危机 basically means crisis. But what's really interesting is that the two words that make up this term means, one word means danger and the other word means opportunity, which I found really cool, right? That the word crisis in Mandarin made up of danger and opportunity. So the question now is, the black swan is here, and it's a really big black swan. And you can deny its existence all you want. It's not going to change the fact that it's right in front of your front door, knocking really hard if it's not in already. The question I think right now is, are you so focused on the danger that you lose out on the opportunities? And a lot of people are in that zone right now. There's a lot of fear in the marketplace. There's a lot of fear in society. And I get that, right? I understand why there is fear. I sometimes also go through the anxiety. You know, shopping trips have never been so stressful in my whole life. Buying groceries is like, every time I go out to buy groceries, my wife says, get ready for war. And except that this time, instead of bringing a gun, you bring a bottle of sanitizer or something like that, right? So I get the stress, but I also want to emphasize that we cannot live in fear. We cannot continue living in fear. And as a race, the human race is really adaptable. This will pass, and we've got to make sure that it passes. We've got to learn to put things into perspective. And when people say, you know, we could die, you could die in a lot of ways. I don't mean to sound really morbid right now, but we've got to learn to live with it. Whether or not the vaccine comes and so on and so forth doesn't really matter, right? And to put things into perspective, I always use this example. Last year alone, on average, in fact, on average every year, the number of deaths in car accidents in Malaysia alone is about 7,000 to 8,000. Right now, the deaths due to the crisis is in a couple of hundred. Did we stop driving? Did anybody say, oh no, I'm gonna stop driving, I'm never gonna drive anymore because it's so dangerous out there? And we did it. And I don't mean to make light of any deaths or any statistics out there. I'm just saying that we will learn to deal with this. We will learn to work with this new normal. We will learn to adapt to the situation with changes in behaviors that are necessary. You know, so don't live in fear. Don't live in fear. Look at the opportunities that are around you. You can't find opportunity if you're fixated with fear. You can't find opportunities if what you're clouded and all you're looking at are the things that could, you know, bring you down, the things that could tear your business apart, and you become very defensive. So as you try to survive, and this is for individuals as well as for organizations, as we try to survive, we must not forget to also put time and resources into thriving, right? Because it's not about just surviving the current situation. It's about the ability to emerge from the current situation in a stronger, more prepared, more skillful, better, more developed manner, and so on and so forth. It would be, I don't remember who it was, but somebody famous said, you know, never waste a good crisis. And this last couple of months has really brought that home to me. Never waste a good crisis, because a crisis gives you opportunities to do things that you would never have had the opportunity to do before. And take L&D, for example. Last 5 years, right, we've been trying to convince clients, try online, you know, let's do a webinar. And inevitably a pushback. No lie, you know, Malaysians, we like face-to-face interactions, activities are important, it's an opportunity to get away from the office, whatever the excuses may be. The technology has been around for years. It's not new technology, it's been around for years. But the question is, why didn't it happen? Now, this crisis then pushed an opportunity to the L&D community to not just take this local, but to take this global if you want to. And that's a huge opportunity, right? Whereas previously, all of us were saying, okay, in order to go global, I've got to fly from one country to another country. I've got to attend the conferences in the UK and so on and so forth. You know, right now, like Sunil says, from the comforts of your home, man, and that's an opportunity. So are we fixated on the fact that I cannot travel and I cannot fly? Or are we looking at the opportunities to say that I can reach out globally, at the flick of my finger? So that mentality needs to be put in place at an organizational level as well as an individual level. The problem is most of us are waiting for it to pass. It's not going to pass. It's just going to stay the way it is. So we are the ones who have to learn to adapt to the situation and hopefully have your Thrive strategies in place.
Great. I think COVID will be the DNA of the world. Yeah, it will be with us. Hopefully not forever, but it's going to be with us. So I mean, Sunil, perhaps you would like to elaborate more on that in terms of Black Swan versus the innovation that L&D can have or can produce during this period of time. Very quick and brief, Sunil.
I think like what John mentioned, right? It's a matter of just changing the lens that we're using. One is to look at this whole situation from a deficit lens, a lens where you see problem, challenges, pain, frustration, fear and all. Two, an appreciative lens where you are able to now look at what is going to be possible. So at this point of time, what's going to be useful for the organization is to create a culture of accountability, a strong sense of ownership, and create the learning culture where people are excited and eager to go learn and develop themselves without much need for intervention from the organization itself, right? I think at the end of the day, people have to realize, right? You are not indispensable. At some point, you can go, to a point where they may remove you from the organization or whatsoever not can happen. So you need to continuously keep empowering, enriching, and encouraging yourself to upskill.
Right.
I think that's going to help the L&D a lot.
Great. Malar, quick input on this as well?
Well, what I will just add on to both what John has very elaborated and what Sunil has said. I think the missing part is that we might be assuming that individuals know what to do or how to choose, right? So if you look at online learning, right, from LinkedIn to a whole host of online learning, which is actually great content. So right now, I think what we need is not great content because there's a lot of great content, right? But if you say that, people can actually choose their own learning, do our people know how to make those choices and what is good for them and how to connect that back to organization? Right. And I will give you a very simple example. My kids, so I have one girl in secondary and two kids at primary school, right? I can tell you that I really enjoyed spending time learning with them because what they didn't like online learning being a new generation, and that was surprising. Now, why? Because they wanted to be heard. Right. So the key word is one, engagement, right? Number two, whether we like it or not, we are social animals. We need expression. So if you look at whether it's face-to-face training or school learning, right? What kids miss out is they don't want one way. They want to know why I'm learning what I'm learning and how does this connect to my real world and how do I use it for my progress, because that builds my confidence and my esteem and my belief in myself, which means that whatever I choose to be successful at, whatever goals I set, I know how to do that, right? And I think we might be having a conversation without connecting the dots for people. Are people ready to connect the dots right now? I'm not sure, right? Especially in the Malaysian context, right? Because the way we make choices and decisions in the past was very much KPI driven, training hours driven. We didn't even do training which was constructive. You've done level 1, are you ready to move on to level 2? We don't look at behavior change, right? We don't look at sustainable behavior change. So if you're talking about real progress happens when nations progress from a behavior perspective, not from what I know, what book I have read, because we can all quote. Quotes are one Google away. Book summaries are one Google away, right? But how am I applying that, integrating that into my life to meet my personal purpose, what is important for me, And how do I bridge that in my contribution to my organization? Because we need to collectively come to make the world better for me and for us. I think that collaboration, COVID has taught us. Hopefully we have learned it.
Right, right. Great, Malar. It's a very solid points that you have shared to all the participants, basically. And I think when it comes to the change of mindset, right, you're talking about the whole world. I mean, it will definitely take time, but I think a baby step will be something very good. I mean, for us to actually kickstart the whole change, journey, right? So, I mean, when we talk about COVID, I think for the past few weeks, people are very glad the moment the government announced that, well, you can do this, you can do that. A lot of restriction has been updated, right, to a certain extent. But if you look into the global situation, you can see that even in China, right, the case are somehow you can see somehow the case is increasing back. And then, because COVID-19 cannot be eradicated, for now, because it needs time and so on and so forth. So looking at the current situation now, one of the major concerns is that, do you think that people will return to the pre-crisis way of delivering, learning, for example, since that things are getting better, right? I don't know, perhaps Mala, you can kickstart the discussion.
Yeah, you caught on with my smile.
I know. Yeah.
I wish I could predict. I wish I can predict.
The energy, right? The smile and the energy really amuse everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I was pessimistic. So when the government first announced, I said, "Oh, I've been sitting coolly thinking that I need to prepare myself."
Right.
I look at blended learning at its best to be relevant, right? But having said that, I also saw how some of my colleagues super fast got their dates booked, and I got worried because I think we need to do a couple of things. So do I know the answer? No, but I think let's look at Malaysian behaviors, right? The moment the government opened the doors and eased, how did we behave? Did we remember what we were supposed to have learned when our hands and legs were tied? I think that's the thinking I would like to go with, right? Because in the past, during lockdown, did I follow all the SOPs because I had to, or because I understood why it was necessary, right? I think the sad thing about a lot of us is we don't question why we do what we do. We are very obedient citizens.
Indeed.
People ask you to do, if I'm going to be fined, then I won't do it. If you're not going to fine me, or I'm going to get out with it with a little fine, or get around it, we will always break rules. And that's how we have behaved. So unfortunately, human behavior works that way. So number one, did we really learn why is it important for us to behave in a particular way during COVID? I'm not too sure. I think what we did is we were risk averse. We wanted to survive, and we realized that flocking and being obedient was the way to survive during the lockdown moments, right? And that behavior will continue, because you can see that in the kind of photos that I see online, right? In the past, when first COVID was, MCO was introduced, right? Lockdown was introduced. If you put on an old photo where you are socially together, people will question it. Today, we celebrate it when people put photos together, right? But we are supposed to still do the distancing, right? So have we learned? I'm not sure, right? So I think first we need to see whether we have truly learned. That means I think the first step is for us to be educated why we need to do what we had to do in the past for survival. Having said that, I think the other thing that we underestimate about human beings forget very easily. Right? We may not forgive very easily, but we forget good lessons very easily. Right? So we need to understand that about human psyche, that we forget very easily. And because we forget, because it's not habitual yet, until you make it a habit, nothing much is going to change. Right? So whether we go to face or not, I think more than that question is, have we integrated the changes that is required, where we were given 3 good months to bring in new habits, whether we've internalized that? I think that's important, right?
Right.
And you need to bring together the bits from the learner's point of view, from the organizational leadership point of view, and from the service provider's point of view. I think there are a couple of things that needs to come together, and we haven't brought in our country's political situation. All right. And that's a fourth one that will also be our next black swan, whatever that is. All right?
That's going to take another couple of hours.
We're not going to do that. But I think you can't
Yeah.
say that's not happening. If I just may add one thing, human beings are emotional beings. And I think that's the part we disregard a lot, right? So I love what John said. There's crisis, there's opportunity. We all know that, but that's logical. Emotionally, as long as I don't feel safe, if I don't know how to find security about how to be safe myself, right? I will be in the crisis inside. I can talk opportunity here, right? Because we are all very good at putting up a front because we know this is what the professional world is judging you from. It's not what I say, but what I feel inside is very important, right? And that's why I think post-COVID, when we are talking, how do we make sure people are at a calm state so that now they can actually use the opportunity and really look at the opportunity and start using the rational mind a little bit more and integrate life.
John, some quick insight from you, if possible. Do you have anything to add in?
So I'm listening to Mala and I'm hearing we need to be emotionally calm, and I'm wondering whether or not we need to instill a higher emotion of fear so that people, you know, do what they're supposed to do. Because right now it seems as though, like Mala says, everybody seems to go back to normal. So I think for me it's about a level of maturity, and I honestly, if there was enough level of maturity, for me, you could pretty much take part in any activity that you want, because you would then take the necessary steps to ensure that things are safe, right? You want to go to the gym, just make sure you sanitize the equipment, you wear your mask if necessary, you keep away from other people, etc., etc., etc. But because, like Mana says, once the doors were reopened, we went flocking out. And we thought that the war was done. The war is not done. The virus is not away. And as far as training is concerned, will it ever go back to normal? I wish I knew. But at this point in time, what I do know is that it's not easy doing the sessions, following the SOPs and so on and so on. My trainer yesterday just came back and said, man, I had to deliver a session with my mask on because there was the SOP that was enforced in the organization with the client. So trainer, whole day with a mask on. No joke, right? But it is what it is. Like I said, we're going to need to adapt. We're going to need to make sure that we do whatever we can at this point in time. Things are so fluid right now. And to say that with any certainty, any prediction will come true, I think would be really silly of me to even try to do that. So I'm just going to say that it's going to be blended. That's the key thing out there right now. And even after this whole thing is ended, if it does end, it's never going to go back to what it was before, because now people have seen possibilities. People have seen how other options are available and not just face-to-face, because it is much more convenient. It's a lot more cost efficient as well. However, and all the trainers will know this, it's not the same. It's just not the same. I call it communication by osmosis. We underestimate how much information we collect just by being among people. Not necessarily even having a conversation, but just by in being in the same room, same physical vicinity as people. We absorb information, we absorb knowledge, right? And this is missing. We absorb emotions, we share emotions, which is a huge part of coming together. So it's going to be a blend, whether or not the virus is over.
Right. I think the discussion has been, very intense, and it's getting more interesting from time to time. Because there's a lot of points insight being shared by all the panelists. But again, I think we are also running out of time. So I would like to actually open for the Q&A sessions. Perhaps the panelists can also look into some of the questions that has been posted in the chat window, right? I think we have 3 questions. So Sunil,
Yep.
can you see the question? The first question is from Abu Nazim, right? So that first question is that based on demands trends in L&D currently due to COVID-19, what are the most so-called preferred courses requested or offered to Malaysians? I would like to open this to all speakers. Perhaps, Sunil can address this one first.
Thanks, Irfan. And I think it's a good question, because actually, it's like I said, there's no such thing as courses, because we are not in the business of what are the products that you can sell. But I think rather it should be a co-creation what is needed for the organization. So
Right.
1 or 2 good ideas would be to look at where the organization is now, look at where do we want to go in the next 365 days, and then some form of new co-creations can happen. So
Right.
among the courses itself, if you want a direct answer to your question, I think emotional intelligence is one that is really, really needed, because
Right.
a lot of people have a lot of stress and depression and all that. Number 2 is strength-based leadership and coaching skills to drive. There's some more disturbance.
Can you all mute?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, right.
So
Good, great.
I was saying, you see, when you're doing some form of change management right now, is to really, really drive the change towards a preferred future. And the approaches that you could probably explore are like the ones which I'm very, very passionate now about, is the appreciative inquiry approach, where it looks at the positive, it focuses on strengths to drive people and the organization towards where they want to go to. So I think in summary, 3 points. Number 1, look at co-creating what is really needed for the organization. If you want specific courses, strength-driven, solution-focused kind of programs. Number 3 would be a lot of emotional management related programs, because a lot of people are going through a lot of fear and stress. And I think that's the kind of support you need to give them at this point of time. No use trying to going and tell them that you need to do A, B, C, D, E, but they are not emotionally ready. They are not calm, like what John mentioned just now. So right now is to stabilize the emotion, make them feel assured, let's give them the confidence that we will move forward together. The organization is there behind you, kind of thing. And then look at how do you use, the change management and strengths driven programs and all that. So that would be some ideas.
Great, awesome. Let's go to the second question, because I think we have a couple of questions. People are very interested to ask questions. A lot of burning questions, in fact, Malar. Perhaps we can go to the second question. Can you see there's a question from Zulkarnain Abdul Rahman? Malar, can you see the question? Great. Perhaps you can address that questions? Malar.
Right. Actually, I think you can do mind reading. I'm terrified of you now because it's my favorite question.
Right.
So, for those who are interested in this topic, one good book to read is Johann Hari's Lost Connection, or you just Google him, right? I like him because our ideas match. So just before COVID, one of those things that we were advocating a lot is mental health, because depression is on the highest, so is suicide. Happiness is on the lowest point, not just Malaysia. The trend is global, right? And this is what happened pre-COVID, right? And if you look at the trend, the way we are going, whether it's work from home or lockdown or whatever social distancing that we're talking about, is we are cutting away one of the most integral part of what it means to be human, which is social connection. Right? Now, when I say social connection, you would find that, there are some people who say I'm more effective working from home. Some people will say they're not, right? Now, So what we do is that we need to understand that there are some relationships that really matter to us. People cannot do with relationships without relationships, right? And that's why they say, if you live alone, at least live with a dog or a cat, because you want, as a human, you have a need to communicate, right? So I want to just summarize it because of the time, right? We all look for meaning in life, right? So what Johann Hari found was that, right? People who have are disconnected from meaning go into depression. Right now, so what does meaning mean? So what does work mean to a lot of people? For some people, I think you would have read this on the internet, right? In China, we read people went into divorce, and I perfectly understood it during lockdown, right? What it meant, right? Now, so if you look at what relationships mean and what meaning we actually draw on our day-to-day life basis, right? That will actually tell us that, sometimes at work, your best time is usually your lunch break, because you go out with your best buddy where you feel psychologically safe and you can talk about whatever that is bothering you, all right? And that injects you with a lot of energy that is required for the next 4 hours, because all of us don't have the best superior. All of our managers don't know how to have the coaching, engaging conversations, right? In fact, whether they know or not, if we look at managers' time, there is no time allocated for conversation with their people. And that's what actually really matters, right? So we need to understand that what we're doing is, with our current, whatever you call it as new normal, some of us are celebrating the fact that we are celebrating our freedom, our sense of autonomy, right? But you see, the thing about human is this, right? We need two things best. When these two things collide, we are at our best. Number one is, I want to be just myself. I want to be authentic, right? As much as I'm authentic, I want acceptance. I don't want people to judge me. I want people to look at my strength, all those things that we're talking about, right? Your best fit is to bring these two together, right? And with the kind of learning that is actually taking place, with the kind of work that is taking place, we are isolating people, and we are assuming that they have other meaningful relationship in their life. If they don't have it, it is going to come and haunt organizations, because that's going to become mental health issues, which is already on the rise. See, while we looked at why mental health is on the rise, we've not done much about it.
Okay,
right?
great. All right. Awesome. Sunil or John, any quick response from your end?
With the question about social isolation, you mean?
Yeah. Any input? Any additional input? Comments?
Yeah. So I'm gonna say that what we emphasized early on, I think the blended learning approach is the best. And if you are, and there are some introverts that I know that I work with, they are absolutely loving the situation for now, because they can stay at home, turn off their video, and do their interactions online. But just because you like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for you in the long term. So I would look at, having somehow being able to balance that out, to make sure that the technology that you're using right now is very strongly used as a tool. And you've got to remember who's in charge. And it's not the tool, it's you're the person who's going to be in charge, rather than a tool ending up being the thing in charge of you, right? So I think that's really important.
Great. Sunil, from a psychological point of view.
My goodness.
Quick one. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, like what Malar mentioned also, right? It goes back to the discovery of who you are and going within yourself, discovering the purpose of your life, and knowing the fact that you are growing spiritually and connecting from within to grow. How do you do it? It really doesn't matter. When the intentions are clear, the mechanisms will come. Many people get stuck because they are so focused on the mechanism, not very clear about the intention and the purpose of what they are doing in life. So I think at the end of the day, what is really important is we all can all go back and really reflect and start to discover where are we hoping to get to, and then figuring out the mechanism. Because don't go and do the mistake which a lot of organizations and people do, focusing so much on the mechanisms, not realizing and having clarity on the purpose and the direction. So I think let's focus on what is more important first, and then worry. Because doing face to face, or doing it, you know, blended, or doing, you know, team building approach, or all that is secondary. First, let's focus on the objective and have clarity on the purpose itself.
Okay, great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are opening the microphone for any questions via Zoom. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise up your hands, and your mic will be unmuted, and you can ask all those burning questions, because I guess the panelists are very eager and to answer all the questions if possible. Right, let us go to the next question. I think there's another question from Zaharuddin. He was mentioning that can you all perhaps share some of the things or initiatives that was successfully done by L&D during the MCO, and perhaps your advice on what will be the best ELC plan for 2020. I don't know. I mean, it's a very good question. Perhaps I can pass it to John. John, your input on this.
I like how this smoothly slides into what do we do in ELC for 2021. I will send you the proposal later on after this. Look, here's the thing, and it's a big ask. As far as something that we've done successfully in L&D, I think it's not just in L&D, but also as an organization. The ability to pivot. So, personal story, our organization is made up of the trainers, the delivery agents, and so on and so forth. But we've also got a logistics team that handles the equipment, that handles the arrangements of, you know, whatever logistics that needs to be arranged. And obviously, in the last 3-4 months, it's no longer viable, right? We don't have logistics to be arranged. So then the question was, what do we do? And some of the ideas that came out from the logistics team was because they're qualified and they're trained to handle equipment, repairs, and so on and so forth. They then decided and they suggested, let's set up a new company that focuses on fixing stuff. And therefore, we then set up a company to fix stuff that was, you know, populated by our logistics team. So I'm really proud of the boys, right? Because they took it on themselves and say, let's contribute in this manner. So I think whether in L&D or as a business, if you empower people enough for them to say, here are my strengths and here's what I can do, can you support me? And you support them in doing that, you're going to find that everybody becomes a lot more engaged and a lot more initiative. You get a lot more initiative for them to actually be able to contribute. So that's one. As to what ELC can plan strategically for, and this is a personal opinion, and like I said, it's a big ask for not just ELC, but for any organization. I think any aspects of L&D needs to focus on building a culture of learning rather than enforcing learning. So the shift needs to happen in terms of not just providing learning and making sure that they turn up, but creating systems and processes that allow the individuals then to embed learning into their daily lives, into their daily careers. Is this possible? Yes, it is. Is it difficult? Yes, it is. But right now, from what we see with many organizations, all the L&D departments are still focusing on being training providers and training enforcers rather than culture builders. And I think that's where the focus needs to shift towards being a culture builder. And since we're talking about ELC, building a culture of learning.
Malar.
Yes.
Any response from your end?
I think I always seem
quick and brief.
Yes, quick and brief. Two things. I think two things organization need to focus on besides what John has said is that we need to understand that we are going to be at our best when our our people are committed. So there's a study from Coases and Posner that says that people who are clear about their personal values right, are committed more than shuffling through organizational values, right? So knowing who am I. And I think this is going back to integrating learning and development at a personal level and all the other levels that matter and bringing them together in what we call as culture. So I think one of those things we might be disintegrating is the culture within an organization. And I'm not too sure if that is the right way to go, because see, on one hand, we need to look at, we need to customize learning for individuals. On the other hand, you need to retain your culture because that's your brand, right? Now, number one. There's also studies, there's a book called Firms of Endearment, right? And what they found is that organizations that are purpose-driven, right, over 10 to 15 years, right, their turnaround profit is 1,000 times more, right? And I think that's because we have not put our hands on the numbers that really matters, which is purpose, which seems intangible because then you need to reconnect to intrinsic motivation, right? So I think are there numbers there, are there research there? Yes, we're not focusing on the softer bit, and we're not looking for it. It's there, but we're not looking for it. And we need to combine these things for it to work. Now, last bit is, I think very much whenever we look at learning and training, we are often looking at the people at large, right? But I would say that we need to pay a bit more attention to the behaviors of leaders, not what they say, but what they do, because that becomes the strongest feedback. So in terms of some clients that I'm working with during COVID, what they have come to and evolved at is the first thing that we have started working on is helping leaders and managers to have the crucial conversation that matters to make sure people are engaged, because they are a very important bridge between whatever happened in the past and the future. So that's the first thing that we have actually started on after a lot of,
Sunil.
Thanks for that. Because, you know, I'm doing a fair bit of work, you know, in Indonesia, South Africa, even in Malaysia, some of the corporates, right, to help them do culture transformation. And what we are really looking at is helping leaders to shift the kind of experiences that leaders are creating for their individual staffs and the people in the organization. Because if you understand how the result pyramid model works, right, it is the experiences that people have created, i.e. the leaders, will now create a form of belief for the people in the organization. And because of the set of beliefs that, you know, your subordinates and your peers and team members have, you will see a series of actions which is currently driving the results of the organization. So therefore, in order to change culture from culture 1 to culture 2, what is really needed is to really understand the pyramid, and the fundamentals is to change the kind of experiences that leaders are creating for members of the organization. So highly advisable and recommendation is to create culture where the experiences that is being created for the organization are highly enriching, engaging, and empowering, right? So the 3E for creating better experiences, which will drive a positive culture change in the organization, which is much, much needed at this point of time.
Right, great. Well, to all the panelists, I think we have a few more questions, but of course, in the essence of time, I think we have about another 10 minutes plus. So let us take this as the last question. Are you guys okay? We need to be on time all the time. All right. Okay. So in the VUCA world, right, guys, what will be the right attitude, mindset, right, to survive in the new normal? And of course, the other question is that how we can actually drive or initiate a radical mindset change to kickstart this quickly. It's all about exponential shift in terms of your mindset, in terms of your strategy, focus, and whatnot. So perhaps each and every one of you will have to address this question 2 minutes each. Is that possible?
Yep.
We start with John first. Yeah, John.
Well, I think this has largely been addressed throughout the whole forum
Right.
that we were talking about, right?
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, for me, the simplest and most basic way is to analyze your thought process and question yourself whether you're focusing more on the danger or whether you're focusing more on the opportunity. And if you can identify that and then shift the resources of your mind, your brain power, if you will, to focus more on the opportunities and what you can do to capitalize on the opportunities, I think there's going to be a lot of shifts that's going to happen, because mindset affects behaviors then become habits then drive towards results. So analyzing what your mind is focusing on the majority of the time for me is really important. And if you can learn how to do that, then your behavior then starts focusing on the possibilities around you. You start networking with the same kind of people and so on and so forth. Is there a way to fast track this? Well, start now, right? Go back and list down what you're thinking of most of the time. Some people call this critical thinking, to think of how you're thinking, which is, for most of us, a really weird way of putting it. But essentially, that's what it is. Go back and think about how you're thinking. Go back and think about what you're thinking about, because that's always the first step. Once you've identified what is it that you're thinking about, then you can start taking action about it, right? So in the VUCA world, land of opportunities, that's what I think. Because things are changing so fast, because things are so volatile, it just means more and more opportunities coming to you at a faster rate of speed. Whereas previously it would have taken a longer time. Right now you get new opportunities really, really fast. So I look at it that way, rather than things are changing all the time and you can't keep up. No, it just means new opportunities coming your way really, really fast.
Great. Sunil, the floor is yours.
For me, I like the model called Sasha. Okay, S-A-S.
Wow.
Right?
Sasha.
So,
okay.
S number 1 is strengths. So keep focusing on strengths and never forget that you are who you are today because of certain skills, successful experiences and resources that you have. So have that confidence in yourself. I've traveled so much and I've always realized and I felt that generally in Malaysia, we lack of self-confidence. We do not appreciate ourselves enough. We do not believe in ourselves enough. And we tend to think everyone around the world is far more superior than we are. We are not. We are as good as everyone else in the world. Have faith in yourself, have trust in yourself. And that's where I say focus on strengths. Number 1. Number 2 is to shift the lens that you are using. In life, you have a choice of using the deficit lens, where you find pain and suffering and fear, or you have a choice of looking at everything from an appreciative lens. And that's exactly where you will find opportunities, because behind every dark cloud, there's always a silver lining. Number 3, which is the X again, it is being solution focused, right? So always remember, keep looking at the solutions and keep building solutions rather than looking at problems, because problems will always be there in life. Only if you can start discovering what do you really want and start focusing on your strengths to get to where you want to go to. And the final A is the attitude. Are we having the attitude of wanting to always be proactive and progressive, or are we having the attitude of tidak apalah? So the tidak apalah attitude, and Irfan, you and I know because we spoke about this years ago while doing a fight, right? It's never going to get us everywhere. Be hungry. Be hungry to add value to the organization. Be hungry to grow. Be hungry to learn. Success will be in your hands. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, Sunil, your final A brings us to Malar. Okay. Right.
I'm going to leave you with some philosophical thoughts that I'm using myself. Number 1, I've never subscribed to the survival of the fittest, but COVID has taught me that's the truth. So number 1, I think I keep asking myself, what does it mean to be fittest today, and where is my fitness level, right? So, and based on your fitness level, you work on how to become the fittest in the shortest possible, safest time, because you don't want to die getting fit if you try too fast, right? So survival of the fittest. Number 2, greatest skill, I want to just learn how to learn, because I don't know how I can learn quickly, but as quickly as I learn, it can also become irrelevant. So if there's one course that I would enroll myself into first, would be learning how to learn, because that will lead you to grow in the way that you need to grow. Now, third, try and unstuck yourself with success, right? Because life is just an experience with a journey with many stopovers. If you treat your life as experiences, making it fulfilling and ensuring everything is a journey. Sometimes you go to places you enjoy. Sometimes you go to places that you don't enjoy because we are supposed to learn something and grow from it. You will find that stress won't get to you. I find attaching yourself with success means you need to attach yourself with failure. You can't have one without the other. At the end of the day, these are words that we have created. So perhaps journey might be a safer place. Now, last but not least, because that will lead to how do you change the story of your life by changing the narrations of your life. If you want to think differently, if you want to feel differently, if you want to act differently, the story you tell yourself has to be one that is empowering yet real. If you don't like what you see, change your story and do what it takes to change your story. Finally, stop talking, start acting, right? If you practice makes perfect. If you've been practicing the wrong thing, you would have perfected the wrong thing. Now go and practice the right thing and perfect the right thing so that you have an enriching life ahead, and stay safe and stay beautiful. I think the best lesson for me in COVID is we are all mortals. Let's not forget that, right? And we don't know when life ends for any one of us. So make every day the best day you can have post-COVID. Otherwise, another COVID or Black Swan will hit us. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Great. Thank you very much to all the panelists, John, Sunil, as well as Malar. I think, well, COVID-19 is indeed a blessing in disguise for all of us. In fact, former US President Barack Obama once said that we did not come to fear the future. We came here to shape it. I think we have a very important and big roles to play. So ladies and gentlemen, let us embrace change. And by doing that, we can create a better workplace learning for the future. So together, nothing is impossible, guys. So on that note, thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen, and have a pleasant day ahead. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, guys. And all the panelists.
Thank you.
All the participants.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
Bye. Bye.
See you, Sunil.
Bye. See you, Chief. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.
See you, Mala. See you, Sunil.
John, it was really good,
guys. You guys were amazing.
Likewise.
Loved your thoughts. I won't say that about Sunil because I've met him.
Right. I got to run another session. I'll catch up with you guys. Bye-bye.
We'll do.
Yeah. Let's have a cup of coffee later. Yeah.
We'll do. Let's plan that. Thanks, brother.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Take care, guys. God bless. Have a good weekend.
Bye. You too. Bye.